Hey guys, welcome back to r/entitledpeople. In this video, a psycho Karen repeatedly trespassed on my property and parked her car in my driveway. She even ended up calling the police on me. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the video. And the first one is a malicious compliance story. Something happened at my husband's work last night that reminded me of this decade-old story. For context, at the time my husband worked overnights at one of the largest supermarket operators in North America. I was about 6 months pregnant and the store he worked in had a change in who the store manager was, and when I went shopping, I used either a wheelchair or a scooter with a cart on it due to a disability that makes it difficult for me to walk under normal circumstances. Background to the story: originally we had felt pretty lucky that between all the pregnancy tests I had done to confirm that yes, I'm in fact pregnant, and the ultrasound, the earliest and the latest due date we had been given all fell in the first week of September. So therefore my husband had planned to use one of his weeks of vacation that week and then use his paternity leave after that week so he would be able to be there while I was at the hospital in recovery and for the first days of our baby's life. His boss seemed genuinely confused by the request. He was 22, single, and called his truck his baby, but had said something along the lines of, "Hey man, it's your vacation, you should use it how you want to." Then about a week later, I came home from one of my doctor appointments to a message on the answering machine saying, "Unfortunately, I have to deny your request for vacation and paternity leave in September, as someone with more seniority has put in for those days off as well. I hope this does not cause problems between you and your wife." I burst into tears on the spot, but my husband said he would go talk to the person who requested those days off, explain that he asked for that time off because it's when the baby is due, and see if he could offer them something to give him those days off instead. Unfortunately, it was one of his coworkers who was gonna have major surgery and needed that time off to recover, so we could not ask him to trade vacation weeks for us. My husband then put in for time off for the second week off in September and once again was denied. Then he tried the third week and is denied again, but this time his boss tells him that he won't be able to use any of his vacation time until October due to his position and who has time off. Cue our malicious compliance. We realized that because this boss was new, he probably did not realize that my husband had been saving all his vacation days, PTO, and paternity leave. When we added up all the time, it amounted to 3 weeks of time off. And if we worked it around to start around when his days off were, he would be able to be home with the baby from October 1st until November 9th. His co-workers on the night crew and several of his friends on the morning crew felt that he had been seriously shafted by the new boss, so they got in on this plan with us. We waited until the boss's day off, and that is when my husband put in the schedule for the time off he was requesting, which was approved by the scheduling manager and the night crew manager. This was in July, so the only thing left to do was wait. Our baby was born in the early hours of the morning, about 2 days before our earliest due date, after 29 hours of stage 2 and 3 labor. I ended up having an induction due to the fact that I'd been in early stage labor since the beginning of August and it just was not progressing. When my husband called the night shift manager to say that I was going to the hospital to give birth, he told my husband to call in if he was gonna miss any more days of work and they would make sure it got covered. It was not PTO, but it was considered an excused absence. After I came home from the hospital, my mom started staying with us overnight temporarily to help out preparing meals, taking care of the dog and the household chores so I could focus on taking care of myself and the baby. That first month home was pretty rough, so I was relieved when October rolled around and I finally had his help 24/7 and my mom was able to take a break. The aftermath of all of this: first up was the 3 days of paternity leave. On the morning of the 5th day of this 40-day long vacation, the boss woke me up at 6 AM wanting to talk to my husband. I told him he was feeding the baby and asked why he was calling. He said he was checking in to see why my husband no call, no showed the night before, and I said sarcastically, "Oh no, that's terrible, I will go get him for you." I put the phone on speaker so my husband can talk to his boss while he's feeding the baby, so I get to hear everything. The boss very smugly informed my husband that his paternity leave was over, and since he didn't come in the night before, he would be written up for a no call, no show. My husband said, "Yes, I know my paternity leave is over, but my first vacation week started last night." The boss, "First vacation week?" Husband, "Yeah, I have 3. I was gonna use one in September, one in October and one in November, but since you told me I couldn't use any PTO until October, I decided to just take all of October off to be with my wife and newborn." The boss: I will call you back after I look into this. I don't know how I managed to stay silent and not laugh at this conversation, but somehow I did. We got a call back later that day that went something like this. Boss: yeah, I'm gonna need you to come into work tonight. I never would have approved your request for time off if I knew you were taking the whole month off. Husband: you did not approve it. The night manager and scheduling manager both approved this, so I'm not coming in tonight. Boss, clearly thinking this is a gotcha moment: I did not approve it and I need you to come in tonight. So you'll be here at 10 on your regular schedule for the rest of the month or you'll be written up. Husband: no, I won't. I submitted the request in July and you never denied my request. It's been approved by the other managers and it's already started, so it's too late for you to deny it now. Boss: I'll call you back. After that, my husband called the union steward to confirm that he was in the clear, and they say that he is. We got another call the following Sunday, which was my husband's next day off, asking if he would be coming in that night since he was not listed as being on vacation in the system. Husband: am I on the schedule? Boss: no. Husband: well, then it's my night off, so no. He hung up after that, but we got a call like that every night my husband was not on the schedule due to it being on my regular days off and him not being marked as being on vacation in the system. Some of the ladies in the bakery/deli section of the store put together a card shower for us and gave them gift cards since we never said anything to them about when my baby shower was or where we were registered. Oops. And by the way guys, sorry for laughing, but just the entitlement of that boss is absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, later that week I made a trip into the store one afternoon to pick up some stuff and introduce them to the baby, and my mom came along too. While we were over there, the store manager came up and said, "You must be husband's wife." I was feeling petty, so I pointed out that we would have met sooner if he did not have a habit of running away and hiding in his office when customers approached him. I don't know if that irritated him or if he was planning on saying this next anyway, but the next words out of his mouth were, "You don't look like you need help with the baby. Husband said he was taking time off to help you with the baby because you have a disability, but I guess you don't need it, huh?" The bakery deli ladies glared at him, and my mom went pale because she knows I usually react very strongly to those comments. But my mom also raised me to be civil and mannerly, so I just smiled and said, "I hope you don't speak to employees like that. That can get you fired. Bless your heart." And one of his employees told him that I was right, so he sulked off. He seemed so desperate to find any reason he could to force my husband to come back to work before the end of the month. I started wondering if he was being petty and might try to retaliate after my husband came back to work, or if he was just desperate. So I called one of my husband's co-workers. Remember when I said the new boss was 22? Well, he also had a habit of bragging about how he started working for the company as a cashier when he was 17 and worked his way up to management in just 5 years. At some point after the baby was born, district came and did a walkthrough, and it turned out his dad was the district manager and he did not work his way up to management, he was just a nepo baby. That burned bridges with more than a few employees. Then he turned up in a brand new truck and said with the year-end bonus he was gonna get, he could pay it off in one go. Several employees walked, including 2 on the night crew. Since my husband was on paternity leave, he had to work overnights to make up the slack. He had never showed up to cover overnights when they were short-handed before that, so we figured he was desperate to get my husband to come back because working overnights was cutting into his dating time. Finally though, the end of my husband's vacation time came and his boss called again. "Boss, you used up your paternity leave in your vacation weeks. You're coming in tonight, right?" Husband: "No, I still have PTO days left this year, and since I won't be able to use them all between November and the end of December, they don't roll over into next year. So I decided to take them now." Boss: "Well, when are you coming back to work?" Husband: "November 10th. Boss called back the next day to tell my husband that actually he had used up his paternity leave while he was at the hospital giving birth, so he would have to use PTO to cover that, and actually he had used a week of PTO when he took me to the hospital with fake labor, so actually he would be coming back to work on November 1st. My husband called the union steward and filed a complaint that his boss was retroactively deciding what counted as paternity leave and what counted as PTO, and trying to force him to use PTO days to cover days where he either went in late or left for a couple hours and then came back and stayed late to make up the missed hours. He went in to fill out some paperwork and we did not hear from his boss again between then and when he got replaced at the end of the following January. Added to clarify some questions in the comments regarding FMLA, we did not use it. This was us cashing in all my husband's vacation we had for the year, as well as PTO days. We think in total it was 29 days plus 3 days paternity leave. We stretched to 40 by only applying for time off on the days he was actually scheduled to work. At the time, the company only offered 3 days paid paternity leave. I don't recall how much they offered unpaid or the total amount though, so we decided to just use the paid days since my parents were close by. As for why we put up with the calls coming in for so long, simply put, we were both exhausted, and as much as we wanted him to stop calling, period, we didn't want to offend him since neither of us knew how long he'd be there. We had expected him to be gone in like 3 months, like most of the other rotating cast of store management had been, so when he stayed longer than that, we decided it was just easier to just deal with him long enough to enforce a boundary. And yeah, ripe stars, props to OP and his wife for dealing with this awful boss the way they did. But honestly, I gotta say, I'm not jealous of people in the US having such little amount of paternity leave. Honestly, as an outsider that does not live in the US, the whole paternity leave system seems absolutely cruel to me. I'm curious, what do you think about it? Let me know in the comments. The next one is titled, Karen calls 911 while trespassing on my property. And of course, it is the title story. Guys, I want to share with you something truly bizarre and scary. I mean, there are people in this world who actually do this crap, so you better watch out. I live down in sunny Florida, right off the coast. We are retired, living in a 65+ community. My neighbors are generally awesome, except for my next door neighbor. I will call her Rhonda. Now, Rhonda is no stranger to being rude and entitled. There was one day when I was out getting my mail from the public mailbox. We have a series of rows of mailboxes stacked on top of each other like what a condominium would have. And I was expecting a package from Amazon. One of the large mailboxes was full of other packages, so they put it in one of the larger mailboxes that they give you a key for. Well, this Karen ended up stealing the key to the larger mailbox, and it took me over 3 weeks to finally get my package because she was too lazy to walk the key back down to the group of mailboxes and put it back in the keyhole. Eye roll, I know. This Karen is also very entitled, and here is where it gets messy. She likes to plant her flowers on my side of the property and even park her car on my side of the driveway. Since we have a double driveway that we both use for our cars, she tends to park hers more on my side, resulting in me not being able to get her in or out at times. There was one day I was busy taking my husband to the doctor and we were running late. Rhonda parked her silver Cadillac just so perfectly that I could not even wedge myself out. So I went over and knocked on her door. "Excuse me, Rhonda, can you move your car? It's in the way again and Nick and I need to get to the doctor." She rolls her eyes at me as if I'm completely inconveniencing her and like I just stole one of her prized possessions. "No, it's fine. I'm not gonna move it because it's my driveway too. It looks like you got room. Besides, I'm busy painting my nails. Can't you wait?" So I just stood there helplessly as she slammed the door in my face. I knock again, but no answer. I end up calling the local HOA office, who also happens to have a security guard, but they are not in the office at the moment. So I end up knocking and banging on the door. "Rhonda, you need to move your car right now. We have a doctor's appointment. Nick is really sick." I could see her moving around in the house. She was not really painting her nails and all of a sudden she opens the door. "Just who do you think you are? Get off my porch before I call the cops. I have every right to park my car there. Can't you see that it's not blocking you?" I yelled at her, "You need to move your car or else I'm gonna get it towed. You are blocking the path." I fussed and fumed and then went back to my car where Nick was. He just rolled his eyes and said, "Not this again." I ended up wedging myself out, but the only way I could leave was to drive on her part of the lawn. When I finally got out, she sees what I was doing. She comes running out screaming at me. "Just what in the hell do you think you're doing? Those are my flowers you just ran over." There actually was not any flowers, she was just making it up to cause more drama. I just sped off and could see her in my rearview mirror. She was raising her fists at me and screaming. I could see her mouth move a mile a minute and she started kicking the air. I rolled my eyes and drove Nick to the doctor. We were an hour late and by the time we got back home, something even more sinister was brewing. I saw this stupid Karen trespassing on my property. She was letting her little dog take a crap right near my backyard patio. I told her 1,000 times before not to go near it because she would never clean up this crap. So I went behind to the back and yelled at her, "Rhonda, what the hell? I told you to get off my property and stop letting your dog do its business here. You need to stop this." She just looked at me and smirked. I'm gonna do whatever I want because last time I checked, the property line is right here where I'm standing and I'm on my side. It turns out she was actually on my side of the property because we had not even gone down to the court to print off records of the property lines and the lot that has all the measurements of where each mobile home is. She got infuriated when I told her that. Listen, you don't know right from left, right from wrong, black from blue. I ought to teach you a lesson. I've been living here for years anyway. I practically own this whole place, missy. She screamed at me and then took her dog inside. I could see her looking at me from the window and then she flicked me off. The next week it got even worse. Karen is at it again with her antics. This time she inches her way closer to me and Nick as we are out having a few drinks on our patio, enjoying the sunshine. She walks over to our patio area just enough to make it look like she's on her side, but she actually isn't. I tell her to back off and get lost. Look, Rhonda, this is the last time. I'm gonna file a restraining order if you don't keep off our property. I'm warning you. At that point, I thought she was gonna go back inside, but no, she picks up her dog and charges at me, yelling in my face, "Why do you think the world revolves around you? And just who do you think you are?" I could see the fire in her eyes and the rage getting hotter. She sets her dog down and gets in my face saying, "You're sitting here trying to keep me from letting my animal do its thing out here. How dare you?" I remained silent and looked at Nick in shock. "Well, you're on my property, Rhonda, and I've told you numerous times." I looked over at the front of the house towards the driveway, and you keep parking your car right on our side of our driveway and half the time we cannot ever get out. So you need to get off my property and move your car now. We are not gonna tolerate this anymore. And right when I think she's gonna back down in a fit of anger, she ends up walking abruptly back and forth around our patio. I was afraid she was gonna trip and fall, so I ran and removed the hose that was in her way. "What do you think you're doing with that? You're gonna hurt me or something?" I started to pick up the hose and wrap it around my arm to put it back on the handle, and then she lunges towards me and falls on her face, tripping over the hose. "See, look at what you've done. I fell on my face because you're a worthless brat who cannot handle her own neighbor. I'm calling the cops. You've just assaulted me. Nick, do you really want to be married to someone like this, huh? F you all." She then runs inside and calls the cops. I see her prancing around on the phone, screaming into it. She runs outside while still on it and says, "Yes, I've been assaulted. My neighbor is trying to threaten me and is using a hose as a weapon." 10 minutes later, the cops actually show up. Angry Karen files a report claiming that I assaulted her, but the police start to question her behavior. She seems a little more irate than us and is shaking, but her speech is slurred. This made the cops a little bit suspicious. "Ma'am, calm down," one of them said, and the cops go back to their cruiser. 10 minutes later, they are questioning us and we explain everything. Apparently Rhonda is not satisfied with the outcome. She starts screaming again. "What the hell are you all doing? These people need to be behind bars. I was just assaulted and they claim that my car is on their property." One of the officers looks at her. "Ma'am, you need to step aside or else I will charge you for disturbing the peace." He starts speaking into his earpiece and goes back to the cruiser. I nudge Nick and tell him to get the property line tags from the file folder to show them. The cop comes back to me and has a pen and paper in hand. He starts asking me more questions about this neighbor and I start spilling my guts on everything that Rhonda has done. I even explain to them the lost and stolen key that she has from the mailbox and I tell them to call the HOA office to get more info on it, and they do. The next thing I know is that the security officer from the office comes out and reports a missing lockbox key. The police ask Rhonda if she has seen it, but she lies about it even though she told me that she was entitled to it. The police do an investigation on the missing key, but the real problem was her trespassing on our property with her car. The cops told her to move after we showed her the property line forms. Since we shared a driveway, there was an invisible line marked up that divided the driveway evenly, and Rhonda clearly broke that by parking her car there. The police asked her more questions and she refused to move her car. "I'm not moving anything," she fired off. The cops were getting upset and they ended up calling a wrecker to get her car towed. She would not comply, so the cops wrote her a citation, and after that incident Rhonda gets even more angry because she thinks the world is unjust to her and that the cops did not do anything about her claiming that she was assaulted. "You're all a bunch of garbage, you know that? Just like in the news, all you running around being unjust to civilians." They asked for witnesses and one of my neighbors was peeping through her window and saw all of it go down and came forward. Rhonda was gonna press charges, but before she did this, the neighbor went to the sheriff and told them everything she saw. However, her claims did not hold up. After that, they charged her with a misdemeanor for false information. She ended up in a lot of trouble for her lies, and she ended up having to do a short sale on her mobile home because she could not afford the payments, and the HOA started racking up fees for her unreturned lockbox key. What an idiot. I'm just glad that she's gone and we can get out of our driveway. And yeah guys, if you cannot get enough of my content, please don't forget to check out my podcast by searching for Ripe Stories on all major podcast platforms such as Spotify, Apple or Google Podcasts. Furthermore, you can find bonus content by going to patreon.com/ripeyoutube or by clicking the join button here on YouTube. For a small monthly fee, you will get access to dozens and dozens of exclusive videos you won't find anywhere else. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.